24. Goodall crashed into the woods, her instinct and training keeping the locust upright. The terrain analysis system flashed red, but she knew by the feel of the ground that she was all right. Branches whipped against the mech's torso and legs. Vines clutched at its feet. She kept going, breasting the forest out of the way in an attempt to reach Jacobs. The tatate pounded its beak against the ogive of the cockpit window, desperately trying to get her attention. She ignored him. That was a mistake. Just as her deep terrain analyzer showed angry red across its entire spectrum, a ravine suddenly opened beneath her feet. She tried to draw the mech's leg back, but the forward momentum was too great. The locust toppled forward into the cut in the ground, the force of the fall burying the laser. Even secured by the restraining harness of the command seat, the fall was enough to create a violent shaking. Above the fallen mech, the forest branches closed to hide the attack on the other mech. Jacobs was concentrating on keeping his locust upright and under control. The tatate guide was equally active, gibbering in a non-stop flow of advice or condemnation. Jacobs couldn't tell the difference. The little alien had tapped the cockpit window so much that the rattle of its beak now seemed like no more than background noise, which he was tempted to disregard completely. The shattered main screen of the cockpit had not yet been repaired or replaced, and vision through the front was difficult. He leaned forward in the harness to peer through the hole that the laser and machine guns had blasted through the armored glass. With one eye, he glared out at the green terrain that closed in all but the locust's upper hull. The laser blast from the Lamb came as a complete surprise, the foliage around him suddenly flashing into a cloud of steam as the column of aligned light vaporized leaves and branches. A warning light flashed angrily on the control panel, but Jacobs ignored it. It wasn't that he was either foolhardy or brave, he simply had no idea what it really meant. The tatate gripping the hull had a better idea. The little alien had seen the metal skin on the side of the vehicle glow red and then bubble away in a fiery foam. He didn't know whether that was supposed to happen, but the sight filled him with a sense of foreboding for the safety of his charge. The tatate beat on the side of the mech to get the pilot's attention. In the ravine, Goodall staggered to her feet in surroundings that had changed completely. Where a moment before the body of her locust had been cruising through the forest above the tops of the trees, now she found the locust was not tall enough to see above the foliage. The sensor still recorded the presence of the Lamb as it made its turn at the end of the attack run, but she couldn't get a visual fix. Around her, the forest was green-gold with the light dappling through from above. She steadied the locust and began to look for a place to climb out of the pit. The tatate guide tapped on the side of the hull. This time, she looked over to see what it wanted. The tatate stopped its frantic hammering, pleased that the human was at last responding to its entreaties. It pointed downslope through the trees to a place that looked darker than the surrounding area. The tatate pointed and nodded. It grew so animated that it released its arms from their hold on the hull. Goodall stared. It was the first time the alien had released its grip since they'd begun to move away from the dropship. Goodall eased the throttle forward and cautiously let the locust move forward. The ground beneath their feet was soft and yielding, but the terrain sniffer gave no warning of calamity. She moved with greater speed, confident now that she could travel without difficulty. Sensing a greater feeling of security, the tatate grasped the hull with only one of its arms rather than with both. With the free one, it continued to point to the dark place in the forest ahead. Then Goodall saw the darkness was a cave set into the side of the ravine into which she had plunged. Jacobs, meanwhile, felt his heart pounding in his chest, the flash of the lasers having taken him completely by surprise. It was difficult enough to keep the locust under reasonable control. It just didn't seem fair that he had to get shot at as well. The constant chatter of the little tatate on the side of his cockpit was equally unnerving. He just wanted to be left alone to deal with the problems of piloting this giant machine. He didn't regret the decision to take over the Locust. The sense of power was undeniable. Why didn't they just leave him alone and let him drive? The tops of the trees to his left were suddenly shredded, and Jacobs felt a hammering on the side of the mech. He didn't understand what had happened, didn't understand that the Panther's PPC had made a rattling hit at long range. The control panel flashed more red lights, and the tatate continued to chatter wildly. Sweat was pouring into his eyes from under the neurohelmet. Things were becoming more and more difficult. He eased the throttle forward and felt the Locust suddenly sink away. He pulled back, but it was too late. The Locust crashed downward through the trees, completely out of control. Jacobs hung on as he was jolted back and forth in the command seat. Branches whipped by, then came another flash of steam as the Lamb's lasers burned through more of the leaves. Jacobs could smell the pungent odor of charred wood seeping into the cockpit as he continued to jolt forward. The alien's eyes appeared in the laser hole of the cockpit glass. The Locust came to a jarring halt. The eye in the hole disappeared. Jacobs leaned forward against the harness to peer out at his surroundings. The surface of the trees, glaring green in the light of the rising sun, had gone. Instead, Jacob saw a dim green darkness. He had passed below the level of the vegetation into a steep valley that continued down and away before him. Twisting the mech's torso to get a sweeping view, he saw that it was all the same, just a green dankness that went on to the limit of visibility. The little tatate tapped cautiously on the side of the cockpit. Jacobs opened the access panel and craned his head out the side. The tatate was pointing towards something in the distance, a darker portion of the green blackness. Jacobs let the Locust slide forward as directed. The green forest moved past the Locust in an even flow. The little tatate chirped away happily, tapping on the cockpit and pointing toward the goal. Jacob saw other aliens drifting through the forest. They were carrying things that looked strangely familiar. Overhead there was a burst of steam and falling leaves. The footbound tatate scattered into the gloom. Then the mouth of a cave opened in front of him, and he understood what the tatate wanted. Safety was just ahead. Inside the cave he would be hidden from the Lamb searching overhead. He turned gently to line the Locust up with the opening, then let the mech move faster. He didn't want to get caught with Sanctuary just in reach. High above the trees, Seagroves banked the Lamb for another pass at the battle mech hidden beneath the foliage. He took the craft into a high hammerhead stall and rolled it over for a power dive. His other passes had been at a shallow angle, but he knew from the target's reaction that he hadn't scored a kill. This time he would come straight down. Zero deflection, almost no intervening terrain. He let the crosshairs steady on the IR signature. The target grew bigger and bigger in his sights. The warning klaxon began to scream, telling him that he was into the maneuver envelope for his dive. He held the Lamb a few seconds longer, trusting to instinct and ability to save him as they always had. The target was huge. He triggered the triple laser battery, letting the light lasers fire first to burn off the foliage so that the large laser could strike the target. There was an explosion of steam as the moisture in the foliage vaporized under the impact of the searing aligned light. Then, the large laser fired. There was a flash, and the heat signature of the Locust vanished. A good kill. Deep in the cave, Jacobs felt the tension drift away from his body. There had been a terrible explosion as he entered, but he was safe. The little tatate scrambled down and chattered happily with his mates, who looked at him with significant awe. Jacobs would have followed his guide to the floor of the cave, but he couldn't get his knees to work. They had turned to jelly. He swung his legs over the side of the hull and took several deep breaths. Perspiration had soaked through his uniform, and he could smell the stale scent of fear rising from his body. He felt a chill and shivered even in the comfortable warmth of the cave. "Pilot Jacobs!" came a voice from below, and when Jacobs looked over the side, he saw the desk commander looking up at him. "Are you all right?" Takuda's voice revealed genuine concern. Jacobs nodded. He felt warmth returning to his limbs. "Yes, sir," he mumbled, and then again with more confidence. "Yes, sir. Had some problems, but we made it. Him and me." He pointed toward where the little Tatate was still surrounded by his mates. "Good," said Takuda. "That's good. Goodall is safe too. She's in another cave some distance from here, but she's all right. From what I've heard, the only one missing is Paka Davud. Evidently, he was still in the dropship when we pulled out." Takuda shook his head. "I hope he got out all right." It went against the instincts of the desk members to leave anyone behind. Moments later, the missing dropship, or ex-dropship pilot, made his way into the cave, led by a Tatate. Davud was laughing and ebullient. He sat down at the feet of the silent locust and smiled at those who crowded around him. "Well," he said, "the others won't find much of value in the dropship. I vented the thruster fuel tanks before I left, and I scrammed the plant. They won't get any useful stuff from the ship. I'd love to see their faces when they start looking. The last I saw of the ship, that big mech was pouring shots in through the broken flight deck like a lunatic. I think he was really pissed." He smiled at the desk members around him. Then his face went pale. Davud jumped to his feet and pushed through the surprised throng. "What are they doing?" he asked in a strained voice, pointing toward a cluster of humans wounded, surrounded by the group of Tatate. "Get them away from our people." Takuda stepped forward. "They're helping, Paka. They're helping. Don't worry about it." "But they're nothing but aliens. What do they know? What can they know?" "They can know a great deal," said Takuda. "Don't let their shape or their language fool you. They've been here a lot longer than we have. They know what works." "But not on humans." "Perhaps, but they'll be careful. They've led us to safety, and we have no reason not to trust them now." Parker Davud didn't look convinced. Doubt and mistrust were clear on his face. Takuda put his hand on the pilot's shoulder, a gesture that was as strange for him as the emotion that powered it. "We all have things to learn," he said in a soft voice. "We find ourselves in an alien situation on an alien world. We will have to adapt. It will be an interesting problem. In the past, we've always considered anything not human, and even some humans, as a lower form of life, something to be exploited or killed at our convenience. In this world, that will be different. We have to respect the lives of these beings, even if we don't completely understand them. It will be the new way."